So welcome back to Light Forged. Today is a special reunion. Longtime listeners will remember my guest from years ago, where we went deep into the mechanics of the masculine and feminine dance, the sacred sexuality, digestive health, pranic living, and so much more. So she's back with us today, but we are entering a new chapter of that conversation. We are investigating one of the most potent inversions in our reality, the war on the feminine essence. We have been sold a narrative that for a woman to be safe, she must become hard. She must wear the armor of the king. But we are seeing now that this armor is actually a cage. It isolates women from their own bodies and makes true polarity with a masculine partner impossible. So my guest today is Sofia Gaia Rose, formerly known as Noa Gaia Lakshmi. And in this first episode, we're going to dismantle the strong, independent woman archetype, discuss the female suit many women are unknowingly wearing, and look at why the modern ego is terrified of the kitchen. So, Sofia, welcome back.
I love it. Hi, Justin. Thank you. It's so good to be back.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to have you back here. And it's been a minute since we've done stuff together, but when you came back and shared this post that you've written and some of the posts that you've written on Facebook, it's been very inspiring to want to jump back into a conversation with you. So I'm really honored that you chose to come back into this space. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, my absolute pleasure.
Yeah, so we'll start with some of your profound writings. You said that many women nowadays are wearing a female suit, yet have forgotten the true function, purpose, and sacred design of that suit. So what does that mean to you to wear the suit, but to wear the feminine the feminine suit, but sort of running on the masculine software? What does that mean to you when you say something like that?
Yeah, well, when I say feminine suit, I mean being in a woman's body, right? But you can wear a particular costume, yet not actually understand the true functions of that costume. So, although there's the female body, the embodiment of it, the true embodiment of it, is something that many women have veered away from. And the reasons for that are various, and we'll dive into that in our conversation today. And my understanding, the process that I've been in with all of this, especially this past year, is that I had this realization that there's a very specific reason why a soul chooses to come into either a male body or a female body. Because on a soul level, we hear this a lot, and it's very true. It's genderless. The soul, we are all one, right? The soul doesn't know male, female, any of that. That's really when we step into universal love, cosmic love. There's nothing but love. Yes, very true. However, we do drop to this rock here, which is the world of duality, right? As we know, and everything operates on this principle of feminine and masculine. So I had this realization that when it comes to one's own purpose, right? We talk about what is my purpose. The gender that the soul chose to incarnate into is actually part of one's own purpose in this particular incarnation. There's a reason why Justin chose to be a man in this life, and Sofia chose to be a woman. And so when we invert that, and then a woman forgets actually how to be a woman and drifts away from her core, true feminine essence, to some extent, the purpose is not fulfilled for that particular soul in this particular lifetime. And same thing apply for men. So that's when my eyes opened up to what you're asking. Okay, I might be living in a woman's body, but if I am not fully in touch and actually even knowing, well, what is this true core essence of this vehicle, of this suit, then I'm missing the mark in some way, shape, or form. So that's been my realization when it comes to that, that it's so much more than, okay, yeah, divine feminine, divine masculine, it actually goes deeper into one's own purpose to fully understand what is that core essence of a male and a female, and then truly descend into the body of a male or a female and function from that place. And we're all learning how to do that because none of us have had a model for that. So we literally discovering and learning and teaching ourselves how to be a man and how to be a woman.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this grand effort of disconnection. If we can be disconnected from our initial choice of entering into this game that we're playing, then of course it's going to be much easier to insert these distortions to keep us away from that fundamental knowing of I am playing this game and I'm here to fully immerse myself into the game to play it to the fullest extent. But if I lose sight on that initial imprint of what I chose to my initial character's design, then of course it's going to be much easier to insert whatever other lies and distortions along the way and keep me disconnected from that reality.
Yes, I love that. And actually, what came through as you were saying that, it's basically when you are a character in a movie, you have a very particular role
Hmm.
and you are giving a script. The director gives you a particular script based on the role that you have been assigned to in the movie. But let's say if you are the star, right, or the main character of the movie, and you're not following the script, or you're trying to actually play the role of the supportive act or the stuntman or something, you just, the movie is not going to go well.
Mm.
So that's what I saw when you said that. It's exactly that. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We gave you a particular script. How come you're not following it? You screwing up the entire movie.
Yeah, and of course we have free will to sort of change and move about. Those things are immutable. However, the grand design is to create the most beautiful movie possible, to make the story as immaculate and wonderful as possible. And it's not to say that some of us are um, main characters and others aren't. The whole purpose is for us to realize that we are the main character in our uniquely designed movie, our uniquely designed story that's playing out for us. And so, like you said, if my initial uh, uh, move is to just completely shift away from that initial choice of myself to choose this character, this role in this way, then I'm doing myself and I'm doing the movie as a whole a disservice. I'm doing the story a disservice right at the very get-go.
Precisely. Yeah. You just said that right there. This is something I say again and again and again, the grand design. So I usually say the divine design, and that by us learning and discovering and teaching ourselves truths that have been hidden from us, we, one step at a time, align ourselves and return to that divine design. And part of it, and this is very, very clear to me, part of it, it is what we're talking about here.
Mm.
For women to return to being women again, for men to return to being men again. And then we go into the various intricacies and layers of what does it mean exactly, because things have been distorted to such an extent. And then we have distortions even in the spiritual communities and the new age, and what has been portrayed as the divine feminine that is a complete psyop. And it's quite messy. It's quite, there is quite the mess to clean up, which is also part of the divine design, why we chose to come here at this
Mm.
time, to clean up that mess and start even with our own. It's always starts from within. So yeah, I feel that this is a very important topic at this time of what's going on the planet, and especially for the coming generations, because there's so much confusion now happening in those young people
Mhm.
when it comes to gender. And yeah, we don't need to get into the agenda and what's behind it. We know, and for me, it's important to focus on the solution. And
Right.
so this is what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. So, how can, just practically, how can a woman tell if she's operating from this default masculine setting without even realizing it?
Ooh. Well, that's what's so tricky, because even for me, Justin, is I didn't know certain things that it didn't even occur to me that that was actually me operating from a masculine position. So it can be kind of tricky until one has a certain realization. Yeah. Because so many of these patterns and the conditionings that women have been exposed to are very hidden. There's some very obvious things, but then there's the very hidden, sneaky, underneath the surface, you would never even imagine that that is something that is perpetuating a masculine pattern within one's own being. And if I were to point out something that I would say is quite prevalent, is the way women have been disconnected from their feminine body. And that would be number one, of pushing really hard, even on a physical level. Okay, so let's take the whole fitness, exercising, and all that jazz. In our society has been cementing that image for so long, for so many generations. And what I'm seeing nowadays is that women, not all of them, right, but a big majority of women actually train or want to train even similar to a man, and using their bodies in a way that were never designed to move or operate. We cannot, men and women are different on all levels, biologically, physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. We are just different. And why not celebrate those differences? And it's not that one is better, one is worse. We are just different, and there's something really beautiful in those differences. And I feel that women must realize that and not try to somewhat compete, and it's very subtle, to become or follow instructions or guidance from a male when it comes to their own biology and their own body. So that is something that I've noticed within my life, and then looking around and realizing that even women's body, on a physiological level, when I look at women and I see, wow, it's the femininity of the body is just not there. They might be very fit in what society may consider to be beautiful, and nothing against fitness. I'm all about having a beautiful body. I'm talking about the feminine essence of the actual body itself. That by nature, it does carry a bit more softness than that of a male. And it's not about being overweight or obese or anything like that. I'm just talking about the essence. And when I started looking around, like I said, and noticing, wow, women's bodies, it was painful for me to watch. And even for myself, I was following that train myself. And when I woke up to that and I realized, oh, wow, it's actually me diminishing my own femininity by moving my body and exercising in certain ways and trying to fit my body into a particular mold that was never designed for this feminine body to be. And because everything is connected, then of course that's going to have implications on the emotional level and on the way a woman operates, because now her biology is changing. Her biology is not aligned with that of a true feminine. When the body is somewhat harder and has lost its own natural softness, then what does that do to the inner terrain, to the inner environment of a woman that most likely has lost, to some degree, that softness of the feminine? And that how that infiltrates into different areas of her life, including her relationships, her relationship with herself, her relationship to the world. And not seeing the softness actually is one of the greatest powers of the feminine, and trying to diminish it in many different ways. because this world has conditioned women to just become harder.
Yeah, to lose that sort of softness from a physiological standpoint would then lead into the other areas of ourself losing that softness as well, which is where that care and compassion really can flow through. You know, if we don't have that layer of us, especially within our women, then who is going to step into that space of nurturing and have that ability to even soften men who become overly hardened. So you've got just this very inverted, far-leaning um, scale over towards that hardening side, and nothing to sort of counteract and nothing to balance that and bring it into play. So it's no, yeah, it makes total sense why we're having such a veering off into this hardened, careless reality when we don't have this perfectly God designed polarized being, this energy that's supposed to be here to balance out.
Yes, and I want to make a very clear distinction, because many women, and that comes from some sort of conditioning, is that when the word soft comes up, many women and people in general interpret that as weakness. Soft means I'm weak, and it could not be further than the truth. Is softness does not imply weakness. Soft can still be strong, and hard can still be weak. So it's really not about strength or weakness. It's something that is a little bit challenging to even describe in words, right? Because when we look at the essence of something, it's hard. It's challenging to capture it in words. And to me, though, if you were to ask me what would be one word to describe the feminine essence, it would be that there's softness. There's softness, which translates into receptivity. It translates into allowance. It translates into ability to relax and allow. And it can only happen from a place of softness. We can even look at the process of giving birth. I haven't done that myself, and from women that I have spoken with, and even my own knowing about it. And it's funny how we've been conditioned also to push, push, push for women, which is so ridiculous. It's no, the more a woman actually softens, the more her cervix and everything opens up for that life force to flow through naturally. But when there's that hardening and the contraction and the pushing, then that's the complete opposite of the feminine essence.
Yeah, very much so. So we see memes everywhere glorifying the boss babe or the woman who doesn't need a man. You call this a byproduct of a sick society pushing women to turn into men. So, from an alchemical perspective, why is this independence actually a form of energetic isolation?
Oh, wow. Well, we can start with the core of this, which even as humans, we are meant to live in a tribe, in a village, which is very much part of the divine design of the feminine. This whole divide and conquer mentality that we've been subjected to, regardless of gender, is unnatural for humans. Obviously, right? Look at what's happening. I don't need to really over explain this. Just look at the world. There are many beautiful things for sure, and this world is not necessarily, as of now, is fully aligned with the divine design and is not harmonious and peaceful in the way that it can be. So that alone is something to pay attention to. The whole idea of independence. We are interdependent creatures. We even see it in nature. Many animals, if not most of most of the species on the planet are the same, interdependent, and even different species that they live in this synergy. And for some reason, humans believe that that's not the case for us, and that we can just be these isolated islands. And so there's that. And then when we focus directly on what you're saying when it comes to women, that's even worse, because that is so against our nature. If anything, women are the ones to bring the tribe together, to nurture, to create that community. It's if we look into astrology, it's the sign of Cancer, the family unit, the tribe, the community. And well, and Cancer is ruled by the moon, the feminine luminary. So when women run on this boss babe train, it's one of the most darkest agendas ever created. And then taking the entire women's empowerment talk and flipping it upside down, because it's not empowering anyone. It's actually a woman's biology and psyche, and then the implications of that on our society and humanity. And I'm not saying that, hey, a woman, if she wants to pursue certain wishes, desires, dreams, creates an empire of wealth, great. My question, though, for women is, have you actually stripped away all of your conditionings and false beliefs and falsehood that you've been injected with to actually get into your core truth and your core essence, and from that place to actually decipher what it is that you truly want? That's the thing. Because it's very similar to having an unclean body. And when we say, oh, my body's asking me to eat pizza. It's not really your body's asking you to eat pizza. It's the parasites, it's, different things, right? We're not going to dive into it, but it's following a broken GPS. That's basically what I'm saying, is that until we actually clean all those layers of falsehood, then we most likely are following a false GPS. And then when you insert all the external conditionings and the comparisons and everything that social media feeds on, then a woman can be on this train of a boss babe and all that jazz, and sure, potentially even being very successful financially and whatnot, but at what cost? And is it truly, truly, truly her North Star? So yeah, I'm definitely not in agreement with the whole boss babe movement. And it's not the role of the feminine, the true feminine essence. It's just not.
Yeah, and I like how you gave that sort of caveat that yes, of course, no one can dictate where your divine guidance is coming from, and we all have a various combination of masculine and feminine energy within us. So who's to say what your true North Star is? However, it would be foolish of us not to recognize the consistent conditioning, societal programming designed to remove us from that normalcy, from that normal way that the feminine likes to land, that the feminine does land, and women typically having more feminine nature within them are going to land into that way. And so you touched on that beautifully as far as the designed disconnection that causes, where you're breaking up the tribe, you're breaking up the family, you're breaking up all of these communal ways of being that we are connected. And what happens when you have when a predator wants to attack its prey? It's trying to isolate it. It's trying to get it separate from the pack, separate from the group. And so if we're all in these isolated ways, and if the ones who are supposed to create the connections and really care and cultivate those connections between us are leading the way of bringing us into disconnection, then of course, how you have to know that it's going to create a very disconnected society, and a very easy prey for any predatory nature to go after. for sure.
Wow, Justin, I very much appreciate you even bringing that into the equation because I haven't had that perspective. And it's so true. It's so true. It's exactly that.
Yeah,
We are that much weaker when we are isolated and divided.
100%. Yeah, so you've mentioned that men, when they view this sort of boss babe, independence way of being, it's not that they're necessarily intimidated by this persona, but they are actually repelled by this lack of polarity. So can you explain the mechanics of that repulsion?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It's very simple. The way I see it is that a battery has a plus and a minus. And in order to work properly, in order to even power whatever it is that you're using the battery for, it needs the plus and the minus. If you have two pluses, it's not going to work. If you have two minuses, it's not going to work. And so that's how I see it in the sense that when, let's say, the woman would be the negative pole and the masculine is the plus, is the positive pole. And not negative, positive, and good or bad, but just the polarity. And so if a woman is actually showing up as a plus and the man is already in his plus because that's his nature on the plus, the battery is not going to work. So on some levels, it is a repulsion because a man walking into that equation doesn't have energetically doesn't have a place there because it's people often forget or not even aware that we are all energetic beings. This is the first language for all of us. Some of us are just that much more attuned. So I know for myself, my first language is energy. You can say all the words in the world or do whatever it is that a person is doing, but it's the energetics. And we are all psychically attuned with one another. So even a woman can be showing up looking very feminine and saying all the right words that a feminine might say. However, if underneath there's still a very strong masculine program that is running, and even in her life, she is that boss babe that does require very, very specific masculine traits to run such an empire as a woman, as anyone, right? Is it does require to be in the masculine. It's not good or bad. It's just when you run on such a when you run that program day in and day out, you must show up in that masculine presence to be a boss babe. And so there's constantly that energetic masculinity running underneath the surface. And this, I'm so independent, I'm so strong. And then sometimes there's also the spiritual ego that takes its place within that equation of, oh, I'm so independent and all the men are intimidated of me. And a woman actually wants to be held by a man so deeply. All women want that. But at the same time, she pushes that away energetically because she's in that position without even realizing and hiding behind this, oh, I'm such a powerful woman. And sure, honey, you can be a powerful woman. I'm a powerful woman. And you can still be very soft within yourself, which invites a man to walk in because he has a place there. He feels compelled to walk into that space because it's inviting. It's not, oh, wow, I'm this powerful woman sitting in my own isolated cage of independence. So that's the repulsion that I'm referring to. And a plus and a plus are just not going to charge up anything. You need to be a minus again in order for the plus to meet you. And then something can happen.
Yeah, I love that. It's just simple mechanics. There has to be that magnetic attraction. And so if we're exuding the same energy, then it's not going to attract the opposite attractive force. So yeah, that's wonderfully said. So you wrote about an ancient fear that it is not safe to live in a female body. You see women armoring themselves with muscle or starving themselves into invisibility to escape their own form. So if the world is indeed dangerous, isn't this armor a logical survival strategy?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, just as that hit such a strong place within me because that was my realization for myself within this process of softening and waking up to a lot of patterns that I was running without knowing. We know that there's a deeper pain behind it. And this is not just the Sofia in this lifetime. This is ancestral. This is the lineage of women many, 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 many generations back who knows even how far we go when we investigate into this ancestral pain and wound that women carry. Because whenever the fall from grace, we can say, right, occurred, and this world became this predatory, hostile environment for women to be, then of course the hardening started then when women started to feel, well, it's actually not safe to be in a female body. And women, and this is something for men to also know, this is extremely, extremely essential and important to know that women carry this fear in their system very unconsciously that men don't. Men just don't have that. They don't. It's so fundamental for everyone to get into their system that as a woman walking in this world, it's not the same experience as that of a man. And the quote unquote threats that women are exposed to are not the same as that of a man. We are that much more fragile when it comes to the world that we live in this day and age. And Justin, I want to insert this story here. I feel it will be valuable because I remember a few years ago, I went to camp, the Yuba River, in Nevada City. It's one of my favorite places. And it was a full moon night, and I ended up camping by the river for 2 or 3 nights. And I remember one night in particular, and I believe it was that night of the full moon, and I'm there by myself, nobody else, right? And all of a sudden I had this thought, and a feeling of fear gripped my entire body. This fear of anyone can come right now and just rape me and kill me. I was down by the river, nobody could hear me, and I couldn't sleep. And it was the first time that I felt it so strongly in my body. And after that came some sort of anger of, wow, this would never even occur to me if I was a dude. I would be sleeping here by the river with no concern whatsoever. And so years and years later, now it's coming back, that experience, and realizing, oh, this is deep, like you said, and as I written, it's an ancient fear that lives in our DNA as women. And so, yes, that armor that you're talking about, the way women have hardened themselves, there's several layers to that. And one of the layers is just that it's actually on this earth at this time, and for so many generations, actually being in a female body has been not safe.
Yeah. And it's certainly what I see as far as like us moving into a new paradigm and shifting out of this default state of fear and unconscious patterning is recognizing that subconscious fear that does exist within women, especially, is listened to as to a point to where we can establish a reality where that doesn't have to exist any longer. To where women can go out and camp next to a river in the middle of the night and have absolutely no concern whatsoever. To be established in safety, to that extent. And that's the role of men. That is our responsibility to create a reality like that, and not to discard or disregard that and say, oh no, because I don't feel that fear, then it's not important to me, but to truly listen to her and acknowledge that that does exist and it's real, and that the effects of that not being listened to, and that fundamental foundational energy that is in the background of 50% of our population, how degrading that is just on our collective psyche, and how much influence that's having just on our day to day without us even realizing it. So yeah, it's very well said, and it makes sense why the short-term solutions or seeming solutions for women are to move into that space of hardening and creating that protective barrier. So it's not to look solely at that as the root cause of the problem. It's like, okay, what led us to this space to where women felt the need to even move into that space where that is required to protect oneself? Because of course in like a war-like situation, and there's not enough soldiers to go out and fight, and you're literally have no other option. Of course women are going to train to bear arms. They're going to train to wield weapons and learn how to fight in that way. But that's an emergency situation. That's in a all else, everything else is lost kind of scenario. We don't want to create a reality that's based on this, you know, last ditch effort scenario. We want to reestablish ourselves back into what does it mean to be in a safe and balanced space, so that I can alleviate this way of being. So yeah, in that. So how does recognizing this, how does a woman remain soft without becoming a victim to this danger? What is the true strength of the feminine that doesn't require a shield?
So it's a process. It really is a process, because it's what you, first of all, I just want to say that, Justin, what you shared as a reflection of the safety as a woman is so potent. And this is where it's essential for men to come together and support each other in the process of actually understanding the responsibility of being a man. So and that is a crucial piece when men, which is the planet Mars, right? The true divine essence of Mars is not the warrior, is the guardian and the protector. It has inverted into the warrior because of this warring planet, or this warring state that this planet has moved into. However, though, the divine design, the divine essence is the protector and the guardian. So yeah, it's a two-way street, and sure, we can talk for hours about how men have veered away from their own masculine role because women have turned into men, and then we can debate for hours and days what came first, the chicken or the egg. The bottom line is that men must realize some things that are not in or haven't been in their awareness, like this one in particular, and then come together as brothers to, all right, what does it mean to be a man, and the true responsibility of that. And then for women to come together and support each other in this process of softening by starting. And again, it's a process. My God, I've been in this for so many years, and realizing just how deep it is to create safety within one's own system. It has to start there. Now, it doesn't take away from, quote unquote, the external threats that are still, they still exist 100%. And embrace that and just do the inner cleaning. And this is the process of a woman learning how to create safety for herself, first and foremost. And there are various layers of how we do that, addressing the body, addressing women's sexuality, addressing her emotional safety, so many layers to that. So it has to just this process starts with the first step of recognition, of acknowledgement of, wow, I don't even know what the feeling of safety is. We don't. And it's not conscious. That's the thing. So to start unraveling that within oneself, and then slowly, gradually, with patience and compassion and love, start to create that safety. And I'm not saying it's easy, definitely not. It's not, oh, here, let me give you a formula and next week you'll be fine. No. It really, like I said, we teaching ourselves, we're discovering, we're learning all of this. We never had these models whatsoever. And I just want to say, add this, that in a relationship container, so this is where the relational alchemy happens, is for men to understand when he is with a woman, like you said, Justin, is so profound, is the listening to actually help her to create that emotional safety, that she knows, oh, I'm being heard, I'm being listened to, I'm being validated. It's such small little things that's the thing. Men don't even see it as significant, right? Because they don't have that in their DNA. They don't have that rooted in their psychology, this fear. And so they might get upset or even not understand, well, why do you need me to listen? Or not even being aware that they're not listening, that they're not really creating that emotional safety. And I know that relational containers can be so healing for both participants. And when we understand the role that we play in that person's life, being a woman or a man, then we can even more so embody our own feminine or masculine essence, because we see how that is a healing medicine for them. So there's the individual refinement and process. And then when we do come together in a relationship or relational container, and even if it's not intimate, even as friends, right? For you being a man, and when you interact with female friends, to be able to provide that emotional safety, it melts something in a woman that might feel very foreign to her until she starts feeling that. It's like ice melting. Everything that has been locked in ice starts to melt, because the male is the fire element. So he brings in that fire to melt all that ice.
Yeah, and the patience required in this moment to allow that process to happen as well, to be in that space of trust and openness to receive. And yeah, like you said, the acknowledgement that that even exists, just because I don't have that same fear, just because I don't go through that same sort of thing, to truly acknowledge that that's real and not just dismiss it just because I don't. Yeah, it's so very important. Yeah, so I want to bring up a specific story that you shared with me. So 7 years ago, you were caring for your partner during a detox, making juices, nurturing him. You said your soul was at peace, but a voice in your head whispered, "Is this too small? Shouldn't I be doing more?" So I want to dissect that voice. Why does our culture view nurturing as small or even slave-like?
Well, that's part of the suppression of the divine feminine. Because, yeah, when you take the divine feminine essence from society, you lead that society to death, basically. Because the implications of that are so immense, as we've been talking about, and what actually it creates for men, and the polarity gets distorted. So there are various threats to that. And there's actually a very particular movement that has played its part in this whole equation, and that is the feminist movement, which was what, back in the 50s? I don't, correct me if I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it was around that time that, because it was distorted, right? It's not, oh, women's place is only in the kitchen caring for their man. It's all right. That's the extreme to one side. And then we look at cultures that still exist on this planet nowadays, like in 2026, in the Middle East mainly, where women are still, I can't even fathom the level of suppression and the way men view women as objects or just as tool to serve them in whatever way, shape, or form. So of course there's the distorted aspect of that. And that's not what I'm referring to when I say that, oh yeah, I was in the kitchen nurturing and feeling so ecstatic. It doesn't mean that that's the only function for a divine feminine. It's zooming out from that and seeing again the fundamental principles when you look into the feminine and the masculine. So one of the basic fundamental principles of the divine feminine is that of the nurturer, the nourishment, providing nourishment. Now, nourishment can be many different things. In my case in particular, and it doesn't mean that every woman is going to be the same. In my case, yeah, I love making juices for people. I love nourishing in that way. Absolutely. It's a joy for me. It's something that comes very natural. But whatever source of nourishment that is very natural for a woman to bring to the equation. It's something that feeds that feminine essence, and it's something that just springs from that feminine essence very naturally. Just like for men, it's a very instinctive, natural thing to protect, to provide. Every man deep inside wants to do that. Just like every woman deep inside, when she removes the conditionings, she wants to nurture. She wants to care for, in whichever way it might express itself for that particular woman. So that's where, yeah, looking at that deep conditioning of society, oh, it's not enough. Where in reality, the divine design is actually for a woman to support the man on his mission, on his own spiritual evolution. So many women view that as less than. And we look into the word submission even, that a true feminine understand the true essence and the meaning of submission. And that it's not a position of weakness or less than. And a true masculine actually recognize the power of the feminine in his life. So supporting somebody doesn't mean that you're less than. And that's where the unraveling needs to happen or has to happen for a woman, and actually realize that how much power she actually has in that position of submission. So the feminist movement has done tremendous damage for women and for our society, and pulling women from, and again, understandable because it was imbalanced, and things did flip to the extreme of women being suppressed, definitely not being viewed as equals in the quote unquote workforce. But then we can go into, well, because we're not equal. We are all divine. That's the thing. We are all valued and we are all children of God. So we all have the same value. But when it comes to equality, even that can be a conversation of we are not. We're just not. So I would say, yeah, the feminist movement, if I were to pinpoint what has caused a lot of this distortion, that would be one of the points in our generation. And then what has, it's not the same, but in some way, shape, or form, it is just kind of cloaked with new age spiritual jargon, is the boss babe, women's empowerment, and women can be as wealthy as men, and financial freedom and all that jazz. Same flavor of the feminist movement, just wrapped in a different costume.
Yeah. And I like how you said because it is important to look at the extremes that were often presented as the only options. You know, one extreme being the completely, almost slave-like woman position of being not allowed to do anything else other than to force to serve the man. But shifting that into the space of the other direction, which is that she's got to reject any connection with the man or anybody in the equation because she's got to be the solitary, quote unquote, strong, independent, all of that and the damage that that does. So to embrace the feminine nature, to allow her to be in that space of nurturing and caring and even encouraging that without forcing or pressuring that to happen in that way, because naturally that energy is going to move towards that. So how can we celebrate that energy? How can we celebrate it? Celebrate's the best word for it. How can we celebrate that without shifting into a pressuring kind of space where it's being forced to do that? And that's the feminine nature in and of itself. She has to be allowed to carry in and celebrated for what she is, rather than trying to be pushed into a box or contained in any sort of way. To give her the container as a safe space to be, but not force her to stay in it. To allow her to just dance within that space. Yeah, that's a great, great, great thing to go into. So yeah, curious if you have any more thoughts on that.
Yeah, like we said before we even started recording, that this is most likely going to open up an entire series because there's so many layers to it. At least there's so many layers for women and then for men, and then how we come together from that place. And the game of polarity, it's endless. It really is endless. And what came through when you were speaking is, and I mentioned that earlier, that it does really boil down to a process. It's very similar again to the detoxification. There's a process of purification that is prerequisite, I would say, for a woman to actually find her true divine feminine essence, the core. And you only can get to the core when you remove all the layers that are on top of the core. And from it's from that place that things just flow naturally, like you're saying. The feminine will just flow naturally and will express herself in very natural ways because you can't stop it. And anything that is not that is going to be impossible to even follow. And I'm speaking from experience of what my eyes have opened up to, because literally as I dove into this process more and more, my body actually refused to move in certain ways, certain practices that I had been doing for 20 years. I could not. And I was baffled, absolutely baffled. And I was trying to force, and I got a very clear message. Honey, inner structures are collapsing. And you keep trying to force those structures to stay in place. And it's impossible. We can't do that anymore because things are softening and you must flow with it and find a new way of expression that is that much more true to the truth of who you are. And yeah, in the game of a man and a woman, and the polarity is, yeah, when a woman softens more, it's inevitable and so natural. It invites the masculine to bring that fire that is very natural for a masculine to bring, like you said, Justin, without the force, without anything that it feels like control, right? And this is where we really got to stay in tune with ourselves and let things flow naturally, which is very much the feminine principle. Mm. Very much the feminine principles. And one more point that I want to add, because it actually goes into the first question that you asked me of how a woman can realize if she still has that flavor of masculine energy, is control. That's a huge one for us women. If it's controlling ourselves in some way, shape, or form, and then of course a male partner, that we fall into this micromanaging of everything, which goes back to not feeling safe. There's a need to control because we don't feel safe. Hands down, those two go together. So once we start creating that safety within ourselves, then we slowly also, or the need to control starts to melt away. And it's a continual dance of the more we soften, the less we don't feel inclined to control. It's just not something we're able to do. And the less control we try to impose onto ourselves and others, the more softening that happens. And one feeds into the other.
Yeah, that's so well said.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's so much more we could unpack, but I'd like to pause this conversation here. So we spent this hour diagnosing the female suit and identifying the armor that so many women have been convinced is necessary for their survival. But diagnosing the armor is not the same as taking it off. That is a much more intensive and beautiful process. So in part 2, we're going to talk about the cure. We're going to walk through Sofia's 6-year initiation in the void, the role of celibacy and purification, and how to actually prepare the vessel for the king. So, Sofia, before we cut to next week, I want to give the women listening a specific experiment to try between now and part 2. So, for the woman who is realizing right now, oh my God, I am wearing the armor, or the woman who feels that resistance to being soft, what is one specific thing she can do this week to audit her armor? Is there a physical posture, a thought pattern, or a moment in her day where she can catch herself putting the armor on?
Wow. Whew. It's quite profound there, Justin. You always drop in these questions that are not yes or no answers. Well, one position that I feel is very suitable in that sense is one hand on the heart, one hand on the womb for a woman. Laying down usually is best because you can really feel that the womb there and just breathe. It's that simple. Yeah, just breathe into the womb. This is something actually a woman can practice on a daily basis, is to breathe all the way into the womb and exhale. When the exhale comes, exhale all the way down into the pelvis, into the hips, into your cervix. You can actually feel your exhale goes that the exhale goes all the way down to that area, which also slows down the breath. And the slowing down is a good practice. The slowing down. That even in this is something that I have been doing. Notice how you carry yourself as a woman, the way you walk. And if it's fast or contracted, to just pause for a moment and breathe and ask, can I soften in this moment? Can I walk softer? I can still walk fast if need be, but can be softer. Just the way you're carrying yourself and the way you feel on the inside. Does it feel soft and spacious, or does it feel rushed and contracted? Because that is a very, very strong pattern in our society, especially in Western societies.
That's great advice.
That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone listening, try that this week. Catch the moment that you armor up. Don't fix it just yet. Just witness it. And I'll make sure to list all of Sofia's information in the description if you want to find more of her work. So we'll see you next week for part 2 of The Ripening. So I'm Justin Carpenter, and this is Light Forged. Thanks for coming.